Merci, Madame Decq. We have some questions for you. And recently I had the chance to visit Macro Museum in Rome, one of the few contemporary signs in Rome. It is a multi-purpose, multifaceted project inserted in a peculiar context. Which are the main aims, the main objective of this project?
The Macro was, as you said, a very particular context because this is an old factory. It was before a factory. It was a brewery, and it's a residential area. And they asked to transform, to add to addition or to do a new wing for the former gallery, which was before renovated in the two other wings. And the main focus for me was how to drive or how to bring people, the visitors, to experiment the space and to experiment the place. Because and it was not so easy at the beginning as a question, because we had to keep the exterior facade, so we couldn't change and we couldn't see something from outside. So but finally I took that as an advantage for the project, because I was thinking that in Rome everything is so protected and everything is so very stable that it could be a chance to keep the facade and to do something else, whatever I want inside and whatever I believe. And the only place where we can see the new wing, it's at the corner between Vianezza and Via Cagliari, where we have this, we could cut the facades and create a new entrance. And it's where we put the cafe and as a glass box above the entrance, etc. And inside, this is really an experiment of space. But the main, for me, constraint for a contemporary art museum is to leave the exhibition rooms free for artists and from the curator. So you can't, as an architect, intervene too much in an exhibition space, because it has to be, it's for the artists, it's for the curators. They have to be able to transform the space. So it's why these spaces are very quiet and very normal, very simple. And the other place, that I call the collective or the common place, could be an architectural event. And but most of that, not only that, thanks to the site, I discovered enclosed between this facade, that when I went to the site, I discovered that people were crossing the site, the former site, to have a shortcut inside the block of the buildings. And it's why I was thinking that I want to keep this shortcut through the building, and at the same time the museum could be a place, an urban place, an urban space. So when covering the total site and creating with this cover a roof, but much more of a roof, a square, a place, it becomes a public space for the area around. And with the ramp in between the two former wings and with the staircase which is on the other side, we can cross the building without coming in the museum. But at the same time, you have some views, you have through the glass part of the roof, and you can be curious or attracted by what happens inside. But when you go from the street, from the level of the street, you can enter inside without problem, because it's free, and you can cross the site also. So you can cross from both levels. So the site and my part of the museum is installed in between these two surfaces. The internal foyer, which is public, and the outside square, which is also public. So it's two public spaces.
And it's very alive and very open as a decision. And museums, anyhow, are becoming, are obviously normally creative machine, no? More than neutral hotels for the work of art and cultural resources. It happens also then that some of them are visited even empty. Macro itself
Yes.
then has a strong character. It seems the building itself seems a work of art. Which are the main difficulties working on building dedicated to arts and culture? You are working not also with Macro, you work with Macro, we are considering these kind of issues.
But it's in a way, what I was saying before, it's a big kind. It's a part of this answer, because this is a place where you propose for people to meet. This is because for me a museum is an urban space. It's an urban place. It's open to the city. So this is the continuity of the city tissue in a way. So it's why I wanted to have this very big foyer and with this object in the middle, which is the auditorium, but a place again above this auditorium, underneath the fontaine, where you can be like under a fontaine, but we are in a square in Rome. And above, this is a square in Rome, because you have the fontaine, you have the cafe, you have everything. So it's normal. Yeah. For me, it was really Roman way of doing that. Yeah. And because in another city, I would not have think about that. It's because we are in Rome. Yeah. And we are in Italy, south of Italy. We love to live on the square, etc. And this part, because this is a public one, has to be for me attractive in architecture, because people are not so. The normal visitors, the normal citizens, don't usually go to the museum, because museum is imposant, museum is something very, very big, etc. So people don't think that they can go to the museum, and especially with contemporary art, where contemporary art, when you go there, you see art and you don't understand, and they say, what is that? I can do the same, etc. So they don't understand. So to help people to come in, it's necessary to do it attractive, and to help people to come for drinking coffee, going to the restaurant, going to the library, and in the meantime, by hazard, going there and discovering that there is something that they can discover. And but also in the exhibition room, in the main one, we have two ways of traveling the space. We have the ways on the ground floor, in connection with the foyer, but at the same time with the ramp, which is at the mid height of the space, we have another promenade to have the view on the art down different, and this is to make people much more, much more involved and much more to please people to go there and to travel and discovering art. Yeah.
The responsibilities of the architects and designers is growing, like all the other people involved in affecting the existing state of things. There are social, environmental issues, considering careful what is already built, for example. How do you see yourself in this contemporary realm, in which there are constraints related to social and environmental issues, for example?
The question of social for me is very important, but it's a museum. So, but the example of Macro is very interesting for that, because when, first of all, a museum is able to change a city area, because and I saw that when doing the Macro, because during the 10 years that I passed by doing the studies and after the construction, I discovered that the area around has changed a lot. Because it was not only residential, the shops have changed. Some galleries came, some shops have changed, becoming design, becoming object, and the level of the quality of the area of the shops have changed too. So it's the quartier, the surrounding is not the same after than before, definitely. And so this is social in a way, because it changes the condition and the people, and also the population, and the attraction of the area around. Secondly, when you do architecture, and especially when you do a museum, when you do some public object like that, public program like that, you don't know for who it is. You know that this is for the citizens, but who are the citizens? You know this is for visitors, but you don't know them. This is anonymous. But when, at the opening of the museum, I was really, really moved by the fact that the Roman people came to me a lot and saying to me, thank you for the city, thank you for us. Because there were more of them were living around, and they said, now we have a place where we can go, where we can meet, when we can go for a cafe, for us. And it was really moving me for these 3 days of opening. It was absolutely incredible. So I said at the end, now I know for who I did that. So this is a social impact in a way.
Yeah.
Also for me. Yeah.
You are also author of an architecture that can be considered very emotive and dramatic somehow.
I don't know.
Yes. Therefore, directly interested in cultivating intense reactions, like the social perspective you were quoting before, from the audience and from the people that are living in it. How deeply architecture and living environments could influence people and their way of thinking, their emotion, in your opinion?
Through architecture? I don't know, because when I do my architecture, I do that, and this is my way of doing. And I was not doing that for this particular thing, but maybe it's because I think that when you do a building, a public building, especially a public building, but also for other programs, you have to give people something, and you have to give them a place where they can use. And when they are there, they can enjoy. But not everybody will enjoy it. Some people will not enjoy it, doesn't matter. We can't please to everybody. No. But the people who enjoy it, they could be, they could in a way be attracted by the place, what happens in the place, but at the same time they can forget a little bit about the problematic of their life. So it's a place where they can just relax and just live without thinking about all their problems. Because people, the life is more and more difficult for people, and it's more and more complicated to live, complex, and especially with the economic problems that we live now in Europe. And I think that architects, we have a duty in a way. We have a duty to provide people some places where they can be comfortable, they can be thinking of something else than their problems. Even if you do an housing, even if you do a program for a school or whatever, this is a place that it has to be done for the need, for the need, to fulfill the program, but at the same time it has to have more. It has to add something more, which is something where people feel good, feel better, and feel without thinking about all their problems. I want to give that to the people.
Many architects are requested a sort of multidisciplinary approach. From the spoon to the city, they told us. Which are the aspects now that attract you the most? Recently you are dedicating more time to human scale project, like design ones, for example.
Like design what?
Human scale project, design projects, for example, that are closer to everyday needs.
Yes, totally, yeah.
Yes. And what is attracting you the most in these aspects now?
Everything. No, everything. Because I always say that I'm curious about something that I never did before. So for me it's interesting me because I want to explore, to research, and to find a way to solve the question problem. So whatever the size of the question, of the scale of the problem, even if it's an urban planning, that I do also, architecture, design, art, why not fashion once, and why not everything? Because I strongly believe that the discipline of architecture, and I especially see the discipline of architecture, is really a humanistic discipline. And this humanistic discipline can help you to provide something for people, whatever the scale. It's not just building a building. It's not just fulfilling regulation. It's not just a professional approach. It's a humanistic approach. It's for people, and this is why.
Because there is an evergreen question about architecture, design. You live in all these worlds. I think that every project, not considering its nature, is different, anyhow, one from the other. At least I like to ask, is it your general approach to this discipline different? Do you feel more free in some of them? Or did you consider why?
No. Architecture is more complex, because the constraints are very big, and but after many years now that I work, I discover that I can find my way of being free in that constraints. It takes time to do it, But at the end, you feel that you can be free. You respond, you answer to the question, but you do that. When you do design, you have also constraints, because when you do spoon, when you do a fork, you have to fulfill the hand of people, and it has to be easy to use. But it's much more simple. It's just one or two questions. It's not so complex questions. And but it's interesting. For me, we can do that very fast, and it's really just an idea. And you have an idea, and okay, it's done. And architecture, you have to work a little bit more.
I understand. Contemplating the architecture of the past, it seems come out at first the celebration of the power, let's say. I'm asking myself what will come out when people of the future will look at our contemporary architecture, hopefully a much more complex scenario, even if contradictory, I think. What do you think about that?
Yes, you say that architecture is the expression of the power because you think about the public building, and it's true, because there were some rules, and these rules were that building has to be imposing, etc. And today it's not the same, and but some architects continue to do like that. And I think that because the complexity of because I have the feeling that now we are much more interested by the question of the sophistication, about the question of a kind of aesthetic, a kind of which has evolved a lot, and help people to be less imposed, or maybe sometimes they feel that they are impressed by that. But at the same time, some architects are still working with the power. You can say that some objects, even if they are very contemporary, are expressing the power. But I'm not interested by that. I'm just much more interested by people. And tomorrow, what will happen tomorrow when people will look at that? I don't know, because I think that because I don't know how it will be to live tomorrow, and how people will react to architecture, and maybe we will live in another way. And it's why we have to build today buildings which are able to evolve, and to be transformed, and to be manipulated in a way, and not built. And we don't build forever now. We think that maybe we can see before dying the end of our buildings. So it's not so important.
Quite different. Yes.
It's different. We are not doing building for centuries. I never think like that.
All the contemporary architects, such as artists, as a sort of dialogue with the architects of the past. It is like talking and discussing with parents, I think, somehow.
I hope not.
You hope not. Everybody the same. How is your dialogue with 20th century architects, French ones in particular?
French? I don't know. I have no idea. No, but it's a really typical Italian question, you know. Because I remember that when I started to work on the macro, every people was asking me, how do you deal with history? And I was always answering, I don't deal with history. I don't care about history. Because it was it's so heavy in Italy that you can't think about that. Yeah. And but okay, I learned history of art, and I learned history of architecture, and I know a lot. But I look at that, I'm curious about it, but I feel I escaped from my parents, so I think that I escaped from the history of architecture too.
Well, the history of Rome is quite heavy, yes, it was.
Very heavy.
Considering your long time experience in teaching, I'd like you to ask, which kind of experience is it for you? Fresh air? Getting strong, alive, contemporary reactions?
This is a very good question, because in 3 weeks I'm launching a new school of architecture. This is a new school which will open at the end of this month, and I'm working on that since 2 years. So I'm very interested by teaching. It's not about teaching, because it's not teaching. It's helping people, coaching people to be themselves and to become maybe architects or whatever they want. This is education. This is not teaching. This is very, very different for me. And it's why my school is very different, will be different, because it's a place where people will grow by themselves and we will help them. It's not just where you do courses and you follow courses with sleeping in the meantime. This is just much more a lively place, like a big workshop with small groups of students.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's very nourishing. It's very giving you energy and nourishing your mind, because you have to think and to research and to be curious about what happens all around you when you are confronted with students. So this is fantastic.
I think so.
Yeah.
You've been awarded with the Prix Femme Architect 2013. Still, there are not so many women architects, even if the situation is changing. How is the situation now, in your opinion, from this point of view?
When I started to be an architect, I was strongly believing that it will change and we will succeed. Now I know that I have to say to for the next generation of students of architecture when they are women, you can believe that you could do it, you could do, but it's not easy. Because it's still not easy.
Yeah.
And if you look around, everywhere in the world, it's a very international situation. How can I say, for women in architecture, we are not so many, it's true. It's everywhere, the same quantity in average in the profession. It's always still less than 30% of architects which are women. Even if in the school they are nearly 60%. Bizarre. So that means that they disappear or they work for men, and this is because they don't trust themselves, or they are not helped and they don't believe that they can do. So this is very important, and it's very general, but at the same time it's very general for women in all the professions. And at the same time, if you look around the world, the situation and the ability for women to act is going down more and more all over the world. Because in terms, when you have economic crisis, people, men especially, think that women can go back to home and take care about the children. And there is not, so we don't need to have all these people working because we have not enough employment, so women can go back. Why not? But I disagree with that. But they strongly think that even in our European countries, there are very, very different branches in the politician who believe that. And if you look at in the Oriental countries, in Asia, the same, everywhere. Everywhere is decreasing. The possibility. We can name some women who reach very strong position as the one who is now the CEO of General Motors, which in the first, and it has done the big titles in the newspaper because it was the first time that a woman finally reached this position. But we still don't have half women and men in the government. We don't have half women and men everywhere in the countries. So we have to work. We have to continue to work. And now more and more I think that we have to fight again. And I was not thinking about that before, but now I think that we have to fight again. And yes, and you know, this is very strange that at the same time in different countries they start to have this prize, because Italy was the first one. Italy with the Italcimenti Women Prize International, which is the only one international. This is the first. In England, they did that 3 years ago. In France now is the first last year, and I'm going to New York at the beginning of October for giving a lecture with the magazine Architectural Record, and I just received this morning the announcement that the day after that they organize the celebration for women, and they will deliver the first prize for women in architecture, the first time in the States. So this is just coming now.
It's the beginning, let's say.
And I'm everywhere in this jury in connection with these women. This is fantastic. Because between women we are really looking at us and we know each other a lot.
I cannot miss to ask you something about this, the spark for creativity.
Spark for creativity.
What's yours? I mean, some suggestions coming from teaching, for example, or from the outside world, or from the TV, or from
Everything.
what you read. It's everything, yes.
It's everything. It's all the world around me, which is nourishment for creativity. And sometimes I think that it happens that sometimes I'm repeating myself and I say, oh no, I can't repeat that. So I have to find. And I continue to look at around me and I discover that I can do something else. No, it's really nourishing. Even a car that I see for 1 second somewhere, I say, oh, this is interesting. If it's an object, if it's a plane, if it's everything. Yeah.
Just eyes wide open.
Absolutely. This is really the most important in architecture. When you are.
Most recent is your engagement in contemporary art. How did you come to it?
Oh, it's a long story, because when I was young, I was doing painting when I was very young, a lot. Yeah, but after that I stopped because I didn't have time to do that. But I was always thinking that once I will come back to art, but I have been always interested by art and contemporary art. And I renovated an art gallery in 2007 in my street, and the man in charge, who is the owner of this art gallery, told me, for the first exhibition it will be you. I said, what? At the end, when we were finishing the world, and I said, but I can't because I'm an architect. He said, yes, you do what you want. And I was thinking, okay, I'm an architect, so I will not exhibit architecture in an art gallery. So I was thinking, what can I do? And I was searching for some weeks, and I was thinking, okay, I come back to the essence of what I'm doing, and I came back to what I'm interested in, what was my preoccupation since the very beginning, and I started to do objects like that. So I did the first object, which was filling the gallery. So finally, it was the opening of the new gallery, but I filled the gallery that I didn't see the space. So it was very interesting to do that, to provoke like that. And after that, I discovered that more and more I work on the space, and I work on the perception of the space by installation, by some. The second one exhibition in that gallery was with mirrors, and the third one was with objects that I discovered. I was talking about my body in the space, and at the same time I work with an art editor, art publisher, who asked me to publish something about my buildings, and I started to do serigraphy and starting to understand, to express the essence of the building through some drawings, and I do objects with design, and so I can do. I'm curious to do everything. Everything which is coming in my office, I say, oh yes, I never did that, I do it. Because I'm curious to do it.
Reshaping the world is a child dream, or it's God's duty, or architect and designer's everyday job. Do you feel comfortable in it?
I don't want to reshape the world. I don't have this big ego and big power, the idea of myself. I just do my job as much as better that I can, and we will see what happens. It's enough.
It's enough.
Yes.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Madame
you very
Decq.
much. Thank you very much.